Hey, Bills Mafia. We know there's only one topic every day. All Bills, all the time. And now Matt Bovee and Sal Capaccio are going really deep, talking Bills all year long, because it's always game day in Buffalo.
All right, here we go. It is Miami week. It is a very special week every year, but special couple weeks for Buffalo Bills fans. And this week, just a little bit more special, maybe. Welcome into It's Always Game Day in Buffalo. Sal Capaccio, Matt Bovee. Matt, the hype is really, really kind of off the chain, I guess the kids would say, but it is rolling down the tracks pretty hard. And maybe more so because of the Miami Dolphins, but this game itself, I've been reading places say it's the game of the year already here in week 4.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was thinking about this the other day. It's not the most anticipated Bills regular season game like in a while, just because they've played in so many of them, but I kind of think it is at home. I was thinking about big regular season games that have happened at home, and none of them immediately jumped to mind. Honestly, Miami last year kind of jumped to mind, but the weather was a part of that game, and it was just kind of a weird atmosphere. They obviously sneak out a win. All of these big games that they play with all of this anticipation feels like it's on the road. So it's nice to kind of have one of those now in Orchard Park again. You think about all the trips to Kansas City. You think about starting the season on the road in LA, starting the season on the road in New York. Like, there's a lot of big stages the Bills have played on. Most of them, though, in the regular season have not been in Orchard Park. And I think that is a big advantage for the Bills this week. It's you get to play the Dolphins in a stadium where they have not won since Rex Ryan was their coach. And that game ended in overtime because you had 10 players on the field, and then Rex Ryan was fired not much a couple days after that, basically. So I know this is not the same old Dolphins, and they're really, really good, but I do think when you have a close game, having home field advantage helps.
You can find Matt at WKBW TV Channel 7. I'm on WGR Sports Radio 550. We're actually recording way earlier than we normally do at 7 a.m. And I have to tell you, I'm a coffee drinker. I think you're a coffee drinker, right?
Yeah, here, I just made a cup right now.
Well, I'm a little mad at you because I can't have coffee this morning. I have to get some blood work, so I've had to fast for the last 12 hours, which means I can't have coffee right now before I get my blood work done. So I'm at 7 in the morning. I have to perk up. This is the only time we do this. I'm like, and I can't even have coffee before I do it.
Well, that stinks. But what stinks more is going to bed and then at midnight waking up to your baby screaming because she is cutting 2 teeth, even though she already has 2. So that was at midnight, and then at 2 a.m. she woke up again. And my wife and I were trying to alternate, so she gets a night, I get a night.
Yeah.
So tonight, this was my night. So midnight, go upstairs, like trying to figure out what's going on. And then the next couple hours later, go upstairs again. Now she's inconsolable. So at midnight, it was, let's give her a bottle and that should help. And then at 2, it was, no, Dad, these teeth are just really, really hurting. So now you put Orajel on their lips and their gums to try and make them, feel a little bit more comfortable. An hour from 2 to 3 of just her screaming in the middle of the night. Then you try and go back to sleep. You don't. So, yeah, I haven't slept. So I might fall asleep literally while we're recording right now. So I apologize if that does happen.
Well, I feel bad for you, but I feel worse for her, obviously. So just so you know.
Oh, yeah, it stinks. I'm like, oh, little girl, I wish I could just take this pain away from you.
I know.
It stinks.
No doubt. All right, so here we are, ready to rock and roll, talk about Bills Dolphins. And I think you have to start with this matchup on the Miami Dolphins offensive side, the Bills defensive side, because that's where Miami's setting records. They've scored 70 points last week. They're just a machine. They're unbelievable. 43 points a game they've scored so far through 3 games in the NFL season 2023. It's just remarkable. Their speed is incredible. Sean McDermott has mentioned many times about their speed. It's just unreal team speed, he said. The players that we've talked to talk about their speed. I mean, they literally have put together like a track team. You could put them out there on a 4x1 and they would win probably against any team in the league, but they might compete with some professional 4x1 teams. That's how good they are, how fast they are. I don't know how you slow it down. I don't know how you stop it, I should say. Maybe I think the only thing you try to do is slow it down to make them work a little harder and not allow that speed and just take over the game, Matt.
Yeah, they're an incredibly dynamic team. If you've listened to this podcast at any point over the last year and a half, you know how I feel about the Miami Dolphins, and especially how I feel about Mike McDaniel. I think he is an unbelievable offensive-minded coach, and he puts his team in positions to succeed, especially on offense. And I think Tua has made significant strides, but I also think Tua is, in the perfect system for him, and he's accelerating. That's not to take away anything from him. It's just like, man, the system is so impressive. So yeah, I think it's a really tough task for the Bills. I think it's a really, really hard game, but I also want to say they scored 24 points 2 weeks ago. So the truth always lies somewhere in the middle. Are they the team that scored 70 points? Well, they did it, so good for them, but they're not going to do that every week. Are they the team that scored 24 points against a much better defense like the Patriots? Okay, they'll probably score more than 24, but they're somewhere in the middle. And I think the Bills defense is a heck of a lot closer to the Patriots in talent level than it is to the Broncos. So I think that for the Bills, then I always like to think about it as like, what's the number, right? If you know going into this game, the Bills will hold this team to a certain number, do you feel confident that they win? And for me, it's under 30. I think if the Bills hold the Dolphins under 30 points, you like your offense enough that you should be able to go and win this game at home where Josh has a big day. He's done it multiple times against the Dolphins, and you get a win. I know that's easier said than done, but I don't think they're hanging up 40 or 50 or 60 or 70 on the Bills. I just do not see that happening, even though there are a couple really concerning matchups from the Bills standpoint. I just think they're so fundamentally sound and their pass rush is so improved that it will cover up some of those deficiencies.
Yeah, we'll get to the offense and what they can do in this game in a little while. But on the defensive side for the Bills, watching that offense, Miami, you're going to see so many different things. I talked with some players in the locker room and Sean McDermott about how do you not allow all of the motion to distract you? How do you not allow all that eye candy to kind of trick you up? That's what Miami's going to do. They're going to run all this motion and they're going to put all these guys in different spots and they're going to want you to kind of react to that. And I really like, the response from pretty much everybody was, you can't worry about that. You just do what your job is in front of you. Like Ed Oliver said, I'm not locked in the backfield for all the motion. I'm concentrating on my job in front of me. Taron Johnson, he's a guy that's going to have to deal with some of that with the way that they move around Tyreek Hill. But he said, and other guys, but he said the same thing. He said, you just have to play your spot. You have to play your job. So I don't think the Bills are going to get like super exotic in this game on defense. That's not what they do anyway. And I don't think that would be the right approach to suddenly change that. As you said, they're a fundamentally sound defense. They play where they're supposed to play. They are where they're supposed to be. And I think that's how they're going to approach this game. I think this is the thing that's about this game, though, is far different than the first two, but especially last week. Like Sam Howell last week held onto the ball. You had a chance, and they got to him. 9 sacks.
Tua
right?
does not.
Tua does not. And that's part of the offense. It's all timing. It's all timing based, which is he takes the ball, he takes 2 steps, 3 steps, bam, the ball is out of his hands. The Bills will have to disrupt that in some way. So the other way to disrupt that is try to maybe disrupt the receivers off the line. Maybe you play a little bit closer. Maybe you do things to make sure that they can't be to their spot when they're supposed to be there. But I don't think blitzing's the way to go here, Matt, because I don't think you'll get home a blitzer considering how quickly they want to get rid of the football.
I asked Greg Rousseau for a quarterback that gets the ball out of his hands so fast. What do? You're not going to have him holding out of the ball for 3 or 4 seconds like Sam Howell was. And he's like, you have to just make it your job to disrupt the quarterback, not even get to the quarterback. So if that means jumping up in the air with your hands in the air to try and block his window or pushing the person in front of you into the next person to try and take him, like that's what they need to do. They need to do something to disrupt Tua and to shake that timing off. All of the success, right, is there's so much stuff that they take advantage of in the middle of the field. So So if you're the Bills, I think you got to try and figure out a game plan of how do we force him to try and throw it outside of the numbers. And if you do that, then you might be able to have success. I think Tua is really good at a couple things. One of them is those short and intermediate throws in the middle of the field that are 3-step drop, boom, you've got somebody open, 8-yard gain, or obviously deep shots to both Hill and to Waddle. I think in years past, I would have felt much better about the Bills keeping all of those deep shots in front of them. But now that they're a little bit older, a touch slower, and Hill and Waddle are just so fast, I've seen both of those guys score deep touchdowns against this exact secondary. So that's concerning. But I do like that Trey is healthier and coming off of a game where there's confidence and an interception. Christian Benford looks good. Makes you wonder, do we see Kyer Elam at all this week? I don't know. Looked pretty good against Miami a couple times last year. Physical. Maybe this is the week that they bring him out. It's just weird to me because I've seen that question thrown around. I just don't know Kyer Elam if you go from not being active to playing significant snaps.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that's a risk. Especially like you're not going to start him. My colleague on WGR, Joe DiBiase, says, "Hey, start Kyer Elam," and I disagree with that. I don't think you start him because you just want to take Christian Benford off the field. Your starting corner. I mean, he's on there because he's a starting corner. I understand Kyer Elam has different traits, but you go from active to starting. That's a big deal. However, I don't disagree that maybe there's a role for Kyer Elam this week that you can have him active for the game. The Bills are also a little bit banged up in the secondary. Not too worried about that. Some guys, especially the safeties, but I think they'll probably get through it and they'll be okay. We'll see where the week goes. But I think the way to do this is maybe what the Patriots did. Speaking of them, you said the Bills and the Patriots are kind of more similar. Well, I think the Bills can do what the Patriots did. They can play three safeties more. They can put Taylor Rapp on the field. They can keep things in front of them a little more. They can move those guys around. I think that's the way you take a little bit more of the way the middle of the field is three safety looks and saying it doesn't have to be on first and second down, but especially on third downs, especially on longer downs, second and long. Put a third safety on the field and say, you're just not going to beat us over the top. We're going to make sure we keep everything in front of us. You know what? If you can nickel and dime us down the field, that's fine. Then we're going to make sure you don't score when you get in the red zone.
Well, that's the thing, too. If you nickel and dime your way down the field, then you're taking up more time and you're probably, if the Bills really are confident in their red zone defense, you like your offense enough that you would say, okay, we'll take that trade-off. There's a couple interesting things here. The Miami offensive line at times has been a point of weakness. This season, it is not. They're off to an unbelievable start. A lot of, analytics metrics say that they're the best offensive line in football. I think they've given up one sack. The question becomes, how do you approach that? Because if I'm the Bills, if I'm Sean McDermott, they already don't blitz a lot. I'm not blitzing. I'm just saying we're going to rush 4 and we're going to make sure that we have somebody else in coverage or an extra safety, or we're doing everything we can to try and muck up the middle of the field and just hoping that our guys can disrupt. Or do you say, well, they're going to find their stuff anyway. Let's send the house. Let's do it more often. I don't think they will. I think they're going to blitz even less frequently than they have, which might be a little bit counterintuitive to hear for some people, but I think they're just going to keep everybody back. They'll rush their 4 guys, hope that they win their matchups, and maybe get to 2-0 once or twice.
Yeah, I agree with that. And they will blitz once in a while, maybe on a certain timing to a certain play to say, okay, they're not expecting it. I think that can happen, but I agree. I mean, the more guys you have in coverage, the more it's going to help you. But then there comes the Dolphins run game, which looks really dynamic as well. And you're going to have to make sure that you're buttoned up there as well. So you kind of have to pick your poison against this team. All right.
But the Dolphins run game goes back to nickeling and diming your way down the field. I mean, obviously you're not going to give up. You don't want to give up a 50-yard run or an 80-yard run or anything crazy like that. But if they are going to run the ball and they're going to take 4, 5, 6 yards of carry, I think if you're the Bills and you give yourself an opportunity to get down to the red zone and only let them kick a field goal, you sign up for this. Is not a game. The Bills defense will not shut down the Miami Dolphins. It's just not going to happen. It's limiting the big explosive plays and being opportunistic and trying to keep points off the board. So, a great game against Miami is very different than a great game against Washington. A great game against Washington is 9 sacks, 5 takeaways, and 3 points. A great game against Miami is 24 points and maybe a takeaway and a couple sacks. It's a very different bar.
For sure. The Miami Dolphins run game would be what you want to do and have them. You almost want to invite them to do it, but you better tackle because they also can explode because they're very, very fast. So it's got to be done overall. You can't just say, make them one-dimensional. This is a team that kind of can be two-dimensional so far that we've seen, run the ball and passing the ball. All right. On the flip side, the Buffalo Bills, they have opportunity here, I think, to score some points. They're going to have to do that. I think they're going to have to basically make sure that Sam Martin continues to be have the fewest amount of punts along with the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins and the Bills have the fewest amount of points in the NFL. And I think that's where the Bills offense has to go this week too. And what I mean by that, Matt, is, of course, maybe one punt in this game, two might be too much. If you can't
Mhm.
end drives with scores, you're going to be putting yourself at a huge disadvantage, meaning even turnovers, obviously, but you punt the ball away to the Miami Dolphins, that's one extra possession they're going to get. These two punters have only punted 5 times. We may only see one punt from each team in this game because neither team wants to give the ball to the other team other than kicking it off after a score.
One of the things that I asked Josh Allen on Wednesday was, does your mindset have to change knowing what the other offense is capable of doing? And he thought about it for a split second longer than maybe he would for a normal answer. And he said, well, our mindset kind of stays the same because it's always our job to go out there and score points. And that's what we want to do on every possession. But my question is more about if it's 4th and 2 in a situation that you normally might kick it or you normally might punt it, do you go for it? Because you know that you're going to be in a track meet. Are you going to be more aggressive on early downs and not just trying to, because that was a really big struggle for the Bills last week, is the early down efficiency. Are you more aggressive? Are you, I don't want to say abandoning the run game, but are you using it more sparingly because you know that Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are your two greatest weapons offensively? I don't know the answer to that, but I think that there is some validity to that thought of, okay, this is a game. Josh, go do your thing. Like, you make $258 million. Go do your thing. You are one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. You live with the mistakes in a game like this because you might have to, right? Like, if you're taking deep shots and you're trying to make these junk plays and you make a mistake or two, well, that comes with the territory. So I don't know. I just think this is a game to, I don't want to say take the handcuffs off because I don't think there have been handcuffs on anybody, but maybe this is the week to, you know, let Josh cook.
Yeah, I don't disagree. This could be the week where you have to say, and he can say all he wants, and I don't disagree. You have to take what defense gives you sometimes, but there may be a time where he has to take a shot and a risk where
Mm-hmm.
the ball's going to be put in harm's way, but that's where the Josh Allen magic comes from. He did
Yeah.
say earlier in the week too, aside from when you asked him this on Wednesday, I think it was earlier in the week, maybe post game. He did say have an interesting comment about that where he said he's talked, he's had lots of talks with his coaches about these kinds of things, and he has to know who the quarterback is on the other side. He mentioned that specifically, and I'm thinking, all right, that's a Zach Wilson comment. I think to me, like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, we had, they had Zach Wilson on the other side in week 1, and
Yeah.
you gave him the game. You didn't have to do that. It's not Aaron Rodgers, right? There was a difference there how you played that game, right? That's a great example there. What you're talking about, Matt,
Yeah.
how you played that game that first week Monday night. If it's Aaron Rodgers the whole game, okay, we can live with some of those chances. But Zach Wilson, we can't. Like, we're going to be okay here as long as our defense does the job and you'll give them the ball. Now you're facing 2 in Miami. So I think it goes back to you got to take some chances because, they're going to probably outscore you. They're going to score a lot of points, I should say, and you can still try to outscore them. Now, that said, all that said, isn't there something to be said in this game for maybe playing a little bit of keep away and using these long drives? The Bills have actually had a really successful job at doing this year, which is
Mm-hmm.
9 plays, 11 plays, 8 minutes, 9 minutes. That would also be a nice recipe for them as long as they end in touchdowns.
In theory, absolutely. But it just makes you wonder, how sustainable is it to have those long drives and take all of that time off the clock if you are not effective and efficient on first down? So if they are, then in theory, absolutely. You want to have these 10, 11, 12 play drives that get you down the field and ultimately end in a touchdown. You keep Miami's offense off the field. That's a win in itself. But if you're playing from behind the sticks as much as they were against Washington, I don't know. I know that Miami's defense is really strong at certain places and there's some weaknesses elsewhere. I think they're more opportunistic and better than Washington. I think Washington had a great defensive line and then that kind of stopped. So I don't really think the Bills should be trying to play with fire like that. And that, I think, is an entirely different game plan philosophy of just on first and second down, you have to continuously be aggressive and not try and get the run game to work and just put yourself in 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7, all that stuff. So yeah, no, I think your point is valid, but I think your point is only valid if it's working. And if it doesn't work, then you got to scramble quickly. I think this could be a big Josh run game too, because I think that in this game, like, use your legs. When you're talking about playing more aggressive, like, I think this is the game where you do not see Josh slide. You see him trying to extend plays and make things happen.
He only ran 3 times last week. Once he got down, once he got in the end zone. It was very smart. I thought it was the smartest running he's done in a long time. I think he has to be smart again. I don't know about jumping over people, but certainly I do think you're right, though. If it's a 3rd and 2, this is when you bust out the Josh Allen designed run, right? I mean, I think this might be the game where you need to do that. The offensive line did a great job last week against that front four. They did a great job on Max Crosby. It looks like, right now it's pretty iffy if Jalen Phillips is going to play. That'd be a big blow for the Miami Dolphins if he doesn't. He's dealing with a couple different injuries, most recently, the oblique. So we'll see if he winds up playing. This is a Vic Fangio defense. Josh actually has had success against Vic Fangio defenses, but he's a terrific defensive coordinator. He'll have something for the Buffalo Bills. That said, one last thing on the offense here. We haven't really seen the Dalton Kincaid explosion game, like the breakout game. Are you concerned about that? Because it's not that he's played poorly at all or that they're not targeting him. He has, I think, 11 catches now through 3 games, which is not bad. But do you need to see that at some point, or are you good with where it is?
Do I need to see it? Yes. Do I think I'll see it soon? Yes. I think that a lot of what the offense has done has been a little bit dictated by the situation of the games. And I don't think they want to show their hands in games where they're up by 28, like they were to the Raiders, or games where they were very comfortably ahead, like the Commanders. Now, the first game of the season, that should count, because that was a very, very serious game, and they lost that game and they were fighting for their lives at the end of it. But the offense was junk that week. So I think now that they're a little bit closer to what we've seen in the past, I think we will see a lot of different things this week. I think that means maybe Trent Sherfield is more involved. Maybe Dalton Kincaid is running more than 5 or 10 yards down the field, and they will take some shots to him. Gabe Davis has had some success against Miami in the past. Obviously, Stephon Diggs is still your bread and butter. But I think this is a game where you have to get creative. And I think the Bills are going to do things in this game that they have not shown on tape yet, because they know their opponent is that much better than anybody else they've played this year. This is far and away the best team that they have played so far this season. So I would like to think that that's going to bring out the best in not only the Bills defense, but also the Bills offense.
It should be pristine weather for it. I'm looking 77 to 80 degrees kickoff time.
That kind of stinks. That kind of stinks for the Bills.
Because, I mean, it's better than 100 degrees last year in Miami.
Certainly. Absolutely. No questions asked. I do think, though, there is something to be said about, remember Tua saying it snows in Alabama. But he played a good game. On that, it was mid-December, right before Christmas, in the snow globe. The Bills get a win. They were down, I think, 11 points in the fourth quarter. They score the field goal, the touchdown. They come back and win, 2-point conversion. So, I think legitimately, the Bills are a better team in conditions like this. They're a great team when they're indoors. They're a better team when they're outside in weather like this. But I think the gap might be different for the Dolphins and the Bills. I think the Bills are probably better equipped to play in that weather. I say that, though, and they were awful against Cincinnati in the playoffs in bad weather. So I guess what the heck do I know?
All right. Well, speaking of Cincinnati, they get their first win of the season, Monday Night Football against the Rams. Let's take a look around what happened last week, or I should say what's going to happen, and take a look forward to week number 4 in the NFL. All right, Matt. Well, the Miami Dolphins are the only undefeated team remaining in the AFC. I mean, this game, in a way, could be for the number 1 seed, depending on what other things happen. Of course, whoever wins this game is going to be leading the division, the Bills or the Miami Dolphins. I guess if you tiebreakers, maybe New England could, I guess, if they wanted Dallas. But either way, the winner of this game will be there. The AFC is kind of there right now. The AFC is there after what we've seen from Cleveland, whose defense looks phenomenal right now. What we've seen from, Kansas City had a bit of a struggle the first couple of weeks. They lose a game, they win a game. So right now, everything is right there. Let's take a look at some of the games that are going to matter to that. Ravens at Browns, both teams 2-1. Ravens lose at home to the Colts and Gardner Minshew. Now, the Ravens were without 7 starters in this game, but now they got to go to Cleveland, who has the number 1 defense in the NFL, and not counting points against their own offense on pick sixes. The Cleveland Browns are giving up, I think, 6 points a game is what it is.
Wow. That's pretty insane. They haven't really played anybody yet that's super talented, but I'm not taking anything away. I would think if you're a Bills fan, you're rooting for the Browns in this game because you trust the Ravens more than you trust the Browns. even though their defense is great, I think you would want to bury the Ravens just a little bit more. I mean, bury, they would be 2-2 if they lose this game. You could very well be 2-2 after Sunday, but I think you would be more concerned about playing catch up to the Ravens than playing catch up to the Browns, because even though their defense looks great, Deshaun Watson does not. He looked a little bit better week 3 than he has in weeks past. He also in week 3 legitimately threw a pass backwards directly behind him in like the Matt Sims special play of the Detroit preseason game. So if that's the guy you're chasing, I like your chances of chasing that team.
That is a Sunday 1:00 game. Before that happens, we have London this week. Now the Bills are in London next week against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh yeah, it starts this week.
Jags actually play a London game this week. Leading up to it, they take on the Atlanta Falcons. And who would have thought Atlanta would have the better record going into this game in week 3 than Jacksonville? Atlanta 2-1, Jacksonville 1-2, and then Jacksonville stays the week and plays the Bills next week in London.
This is a philosophy question. Do you think there's anything to be said about following up? Would you rather play a team after a win or after a loss? Because obviously, from an AFC standing standpoint, you want Atlanta to win. You want the Jags to fall to, what would they be at that point? They would be 1-3. That'd be a pretty big hole. But playing the Jags after a loss in London where they stay the week, you might unleash something in them. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know the answer. You certainly want the Jags. You certainly want the Jags to lose.
I think that's right.
There's no question.
Generally, you'd rather play a team, I think, coming off a win. You don't want to like a team that's really got its. I'll give you a great example in college. Syracuse hosts Clemson this week. Syracuse is 4-0. I was hoping Clemson would beat Florida State. I do not want Clemson coming to the Dome off a loss. Now they are, though. Yeah. They lost in overtime, right? And oh, okay. Now they're going to be, they really need to win this game, get back on track. They're going to be a little more focused. Coaches are going to put it to them a little harder this week, whatever it is. So I think those standings wise, you still want the Atlanta Falcons to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. The interesting thing to me about that game is, can Jacksonville find its way? Because they've just been so disjointed on offense. And it's just, and I know that they're playing a little bit better in some of the numbers. The scoring doesn't really reflect maybe what they've done. They've been a little better, had a couple of touchdowns called back where they played better than what that showed in Kansas City. But that's the question about this game for me. I know this game means nothing to anybody at the AFC, but maybe the two worst teams in the league right now are playing. They're both 0-3. The Broncos and Bears on Sunday. How about that one?
It will be incredible that one of those teams will have a win. Unless what would be the most incredible is that if they tie. Right? If they tie and they're both 0-1-3, that would be hysterical. The Broncos are, I think, going to win this game. I think you just had 70 points put up on you. Like, your defense is going to play significantly better than they did. And things are going to go from Tua to Justin Fields. Like, you should be able to go make some plays on that. And I don't think the Broncos offense is a disaster. It's not good, but it's not as bad as Chicago has been. So but at the same time, you just always root for the NFC. If it's an AFC NFC game, so you should want the Bears to win that game for sure.
We just talked about the Jacksonville Jaguars and not looking as good as people have thought. One of the reasons, and one of the games they played last week against the Houston Texans, 37 points the Texans put on the Jags. Texans host the Pittsburgh Steelers. CJ Stroud looks pretty good. He was 20 of 30 for 280 and 2 touchdowns last week. I give the Texans a chance here to beat Pittsburgh because Pittsburgh does not have a dynamic offense. I think this is a game where I wouldn't be. In fact, did I read the Texans are favored in this game? They might be.
They might be. I don't think it would be off base. Steelers, great defense. Their offense hasn't done it for me. I've watched a lot of the Steelers the first couple weeks. They had the game on Monday Night Football. They had the game on Sunday Night Football. So they've been accessible with not playing when the Bills are playing. So I've had a chance to see them. And each time I've just been like, wow, this team is pretty lackluster offensively. I keep asking myself, why don't they just throw deep shots to George Pickens? And for some reason, they don't do that nearly as much. So I don't know. I'm not impressed with Kenny Pickett. I'm more impressed with CJ Stroud so far. It's in Houston. Yeah. Hey, maybe the young kid can pull off, I don't want to say the upset, but a tougher game and really, kind of change the perception around that team, at least for the next little bit here.
All right, let me at least clarify. So the Steelers are actually favored. They're favored by 2.5. It was 3. It went down. Maybe that's what I saw, that it was moving towards Houston. Steelers are favored. But that said, I do a thing called 3 Dog Thursday every Thursday on WGR. Maybe I'll take the Houston Texans to cover that spread on 3 Dog Thursday because that is going to be, I think, a game where the Houston Texans, coming off a nice win, can be at least very competitive and maybe even win. The Rams are at the Colts. What you saw from the Colts, a win. They're 2-1 now. The Indianapolis Colts are on top of the AFC South at 2-1.
I know. It's crazy. I don't know what the Rams are because I watched that game against the Bengals the other day and they just looked so meh. I just was anticipating more from them. I mean, if the Colts win and they're 3-1, and if the Jags lose and they're 1-3, did you ever see that happening? Like that's the thing that goes back to not to go back to Jacksonville. If the Jags lose this week, the Jags are fighting for their playoff lives next week against the Bills. Like legitimately, you fall to 1-4. I would like to think that you've got probably not no shot, but pretty close to no shot. So it's just a really, I literally thought the Jags could be the 1 seed in the AFC because of
you
the
and Peter
division.
King predicted them to be the one. You're not alone.
I didn't think they would be. I thought they could be. So there's a little bit of a difference there. But man, that I did not see it going like this.
I think the Buccaneers were kind of exposed as a bit of frauds last week. They were 2-0, but they did not look good against the Eagles. Now they go to the Saints. I think the Saints are getting Alvin Kamara back, I believe, this week. I think the Saints should take care of the Buccaneers at home. And then you have the Commanders and Eagles. Commanders, we saw them last week against the Bills. They're 2-1. They go to the Eagles. Eagles are 3-0, but it doesn't feel like they're as great and explosive, but yet they're still getting the job done.
Isn't it funny that nobody really seems to be concerned about the Eagles? Everybody's like, oh, yeah, tough. Eagles 3-0. Like, I don't see that about some of the other teams. You know, the Chiefs lose a game, and everybody's like, are the Chiefs done? The Bills start the season with a stinker. And now the Eagles are 3-0. Those two teams that I just mentioned have a loss, so it's certainly different. But they have not looked like the absolute dominant force that is the Eagles right now that we saw last year. I still think they're a very good team, but I think San Francisco's better right now than the Eagles are. And I think of the contenders in the NFC, I would say they're the second behind San Francisco. I would have maybe said Dallas is in front of them too, but obviously they lose until last week.
Did you I doubt you've looked at the Eagles schedule. They're going to be 6-0. And then it gets real for them though. It's way different. So they have coming up Commanders, Rams, Jets. Okay, they're going to be 6-0. Then they have the Dolphins, then the Commanders again. Then they have Cowboys, Chiefs, Bills, 49ers, Cowboys.
Wow. So it's kind of like the Bills schedule, just the NFC version of it, where it starts a little bit easier and then it just becomes an absolute gauntlet down the road. So yeah, I mean, I still think the Eagles are really good. I still think the Eagles are going to be a playoff team and probably play in the NFC Championship. It just has not been as smooth of a ride the first 3 weeks, maybe as some people anticipated.
Bengals at Titans. After seeing Joe Burrow Monday night and look a little better, I'm still not convinced that he's not 100%. That's for sure.
Certainly,
I don't know. They're better than the Titans, but this could be a game.
I think the Titans might win, which is nuts. I would have never said that 3 weeks ago.
Tannehill doesn't look good though.
Tannehill doesn't look good, but that defense is okay. Well, so is the Bengals. The Bengals defense looks good too. I think that's going to be a pretty close game. I don't know. I'm not impressed with either of those teams. Obviously, though, from a Bills standpoint, you'd love the Titans to win that game because it would bury the Bengals that much more than they already are.
Only 3-4 o'clock window games on Sunday. 2 of them involve AFC teams. Raiders at Chargers. I mean, the Chargers can't get out of their own way, but they better be able to beat the Raiders, right? I mean, after what Justin Herbert did last week, I think Justin Herbert could crap out of 450 against that team.
Yeah, they're going to demolish them.
I think so too. Patriots at Cowboys. Any chance for the Patriots after what you saw? The Cowboys, the egg that they laid against the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I actually think the Patriots cover in this game, which is, I think, a bit of a weird take. But for some reason, this just feels like one of those games where the Patriots hang around. The Cowboys coming off the game of the Cardinals. I think they'll be in their own heads a little bit. I still think that they'll win.
7 is the line.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, the Patriots are the Patriots don't get blown out. Really, well, except for the wild card game in Buffalo a couple of years ago. But other than that, there are very few times when that team gets blown out. They're always kind of just hanging around. It's what they did against Miami a few weeks ago, where they fall behind and then they close the gap, and it's like, oh, maybe they're going to actually win, and then they don't. I think it's going to be one of those games where the Cowboys get out to a lead, then all of a sudden it's the same thing they did too against the Eagles. They fall behind huge, the Eagles, week 1. We're all in New York watching at sports bars and stuff, getting ready for the Bills to play the next day. And you're like, oh, the Eagles are up big early. The Patriots stink. And then all of a sudden, they've got a chance to win at the end of the game. I think that's just kind of what the Patriots do. So I think they're going to do something like that again, where they don't win, but they lose a close game.
Cardinals aren't going to be able to do it twice in a row, right? They go to the 49ers this week.
No.
They can't do this twice in a row, can they?
No, I think the 49ers are very legit. Very
Yeah.
legit. I think the
Me
49ers might be the best team in football. 49ers, I would say, are one of 2 or 3 teams in the conversation for best team in football.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't excuse me. Yeah, I mean 30-7. By the way, they've scored 30 points in every game. 30-7, 30-23, 30-12. They didn't look great against the Rams. 30-23. Teams are going to have games like that. We'll see. It's a tough, long season. Sunday night, while the nation is focused on Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce, the Chiefs are going to be at the Jets, and the Jets have a lot of struggles going on at quarterback right now. Zach Wilson, they brought in Trevor Siemian. At some point, he'll probably be the starter for that team. It's a road to nowhere right now for the New York Jets once again this year, but Bills fans are going to hope that defense can rise up and play tough enough against Patrick Mahomes to at least allow for a low-scoring win.
Yeah, sure. It's just not going to happen. The Chiefs are going to win, and the Chiefs are going to win pretty comfortably because for some reason, the only good team in this league that struggles against Zach Wilson is the Buffalo Bills, and I don't get it. Feels like every other team can go in there and just dominate them, but for some reason, Zach Wilson has the Bills number, and I don't get it.
Finally, the week wraps up with the Seahawks at the Giants. The Giants just have not looked good. They cannot protect Daniel Jones, and Brian Daboll's trying to figure it out over there.
Yeah, it's a tough job. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know if Saquon's going to play. It feels like they just don't have a ton of other options as far as offensive weapons. Darren Waller was supposed to make a big difference. He's been inconsistent so far. Jalen Hyatt, Isaiah Hodgins, you've got guys, but not guys who I think you're super comfortable taking over a game. And then when you look on the other sideline, you've got a team that's got DK Metcalf, you've got Jackson Smith and Jigba, you've got Tyler Lockett. That's a team that's got weapons. So yeah, even though they're on the road, give me the Seahawks in that game.
All right, Matt. Well, the Bills are back on the practice field on Thursday at 12:30, Friday for their final tune-up of the week, and then Sunday, the Miami Dolphins come to town. It is Miami week here in Buffalo. It's going to be a fun one.
Were you at all surprised by the line? We were just talking about the Steelers and the Cardinals and some of the different lines. Were you surprised? It's opened Bills 2.5, and I think at some places it has been bet to Bills 3.
Interesting. I'm not surprised the Bills are favored by 2.5. I think they're saying hey, the home's going to matter a little bit. Yeah. The Bills do have, maybe I guess I would have thought maybe a pick 'em or a 1 point. I think I would have been surprised if Miami was favored. Look, one thing I want to point out is, as much as we talk about the Dolphins and their incredible offense, the Bills' defense itself, if you don't count the special teams touchdown that the Jets scored, because we didn't do that for the Browns,
29
Bills' defense
points.
has given up 10 points a game.
Yeah.
I mean, they're legit. And 11.5 or 6, I think, if you even count that touchdown. But the point is, that's why the Bills are favored in this game, because they do have a legitimate defense. They are playing at home. And, you could definitely justify that they would play a close enough game to give them maybe that edge.
I think it's a coin flip. I think it's a tough game. I think if both teams play to the caliber that they're capable of playing, I think the Bills win. But I think if the Dolphins can come in here and just attack the Bills with the speed they have, then they're going to win the game. I don't know what's going to happen. It's super hard to predict exactly how we think this is going to play out. I think the Dolphins have the one thing that is the most dynamic in the entire game, and it's their offense. So if you said, okay, let's break it down this way, I think the most dynamic thing is their offense, and the least is their defense. And then I think 2 and 3 are the Bills. So it's how would you rather have your team built? With a really, really great offense and a defense where there's a couple more questions? Or would you rather have your team built kind of overall like the Bills have, with a really good defense and an offense that is capable of taking over a game? We haven't seen it yet.
So I want to remind you that the Bills offense is number 2 in scoring in the league, behind only the Miami Dolphins.
Sure. But it's weird, right? It's like one of those things where the numbers are a bit inflated because you have a pick six from AJ Epinesa that elevates you a little bit. You've really stunk against the only good defense that you played. Like, I'm not saying the Bills offense is not good. I'm just saying I think there
couldn't I say
is
the same about the Dolphins? Numbers are inflated because they scored 70. They scored 24 the previous week.
Yeah, but they scored 70.
I know, I get it. I don't think we can play this game where that counts, this doesn't count. It's all counts.
No, it all counts. But if you take away all of that stuff for the Dolphins, they still score like 54, and the Bills score 30. So it's a different. I'm just saying. I think of all of the areas of football right now, the Dolphins' offense is more dynamic than the Bills' offense.
100%, it is 100%.
Yeah, but I think
the
Bills' defense.
Credit to the Bills' offense for how good they are.
I'm still concerned about the offense. Like,
in what way? Like, what are you concerned about exactly?
They stink on first down.
Yep, I agree. That has been a struggle.
Like, and that to me against this team could be a recipe for disaster.
Sure. Look, I'm not saying they're perfect. I just think that when it's like, look at this Miami Dolphins offense. It's amazing. 43 points a game. Yep. Guess what? The Bills are 30 points a game. Number 2 in the league.
For sure. I think that this is a very, very close game. I think if the Bills offense is clicking, they win this game. But I don't know yet if I'm super confident in the Bills offense. I don't know if they've showed me enough to say, because I think it's very circumstantial. I think, yeah, the offense has looked good, but they also only had 16 points going into middle of the fourth quarter against the Commanders. And then same thing, the Raiders game was kind of a blowout, and they had some unbelievable field position in the game. I think the Bills offense is capable of going toe-to-toe with any team in the league. But so far, somebody asked the question for the last post-game podcast we did, and they said, can we stop saying the Bills offense is, I think they said, like, what was the terminology? They basically said, like, explosive. Yeah, can we stop saying the Bills offense is explosive?
Well, they haven't been that explosive this year.
But they're capable of it. So that's kind of the thing. I think Josh Allen,
doing what they need to do each game to try and win the game. That's the point.
Yes, and if they're going to keep that trend, then I think this needs to be a week where their offense really becomes explosive and shows us what they are capable of doing, because that will not work against this team. You cannot, I think, have 16 points going into the fourth quarter and say, like, okay, well, our defense is going to make some big plays and we'll be opportunistic. Like, I think if that happens, you're not winning the game.
Can it work in this game to keep the ball, though? See, if you keep the ball on the ground and away from Tua and the Dolphins offense, and it is, you don't score explosive plays or a ton of points, but you're holding the ball and still maximizing your possessions, that can work too.
Sure, it can. I'm so impressed with the Miami offense. There's going to be people who watch this and listen to this, and they're going to be like, Matt is so negative. And I've already had people reach out to me this weekend from Channel 7, and they're like, you sound like the Bills are going to lose. And I'm like, no, I sound like somebody who doesn't exactly know what's going to happen, but I'm not overly confident the Bills are going to win. I genuinely think the Bills are going to win, but I'm not super confident in that.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, that's why, again, the game is pretty much very even, in Vegas. I agree with you. I think I think we get caught up in all these incredible things Miami's doing, which they are. They just deserve all that credit. And I just want to point out, like, the Bills also have the second highest scoring team in the league, only behind them.
Yeah, I know.
But no matter how they do it, it counts.
You're right. You're right. I trust Miami's offense because of Mike McDaniel more than I trust the Bills offense right now. I certainly trust Mike McDaniel more than I trust Ken Dorsey, at least right now. I also trust Josh Allen more than Tua.
So what do you trust in defense more?
The Bills, for sure. But like I said, I think there might be a little bit of a gap there. That's how much more I trust the Dolphins offense to go put out points. But if you told me right now, it's Thursday morning, if you told me the Bills are going to score 31 points, I would say, okay, I think they're going to win. But if you say, okay, the Bills are going to score 24, then I think they lose. The margin for error is that small because the opponent is that good. And these teams play close games. Even when the gap felt like it was a little bigger, these teams play close games. I mean, they won by 3 against Skylar Thompson. They won by 3 against Tua in the snow game. And then they lost by 3 in a game where Tua left the game because he was injured and then comes back and they still lost. So these teams play close games. It's going to be a close. We talked about this at Bills practice on Wednesday. I don't think this is a blowout either way. Neither of these teams do that. It's going to be a close game. margin for error is that much smaller in these kind of games.
Maybe one of the long snappers will have a say in it. The two brothers, Reed Ferguson and Blake Ferguson. Maybe that'll be come down to that. They make a big play. Hey, look at that. All right.
Do you remember the game, the last one in 2016 that the Dolphins won? Do you remember that on Christmas Eve at all?
Of course, yeah. Yeah. In fact, believe it or not, I just rewatched a bunch of it the other night because I was thinking about it.
How far this team has come since having 10 players
I
on
don't
the
know
field.
if people remember, but in overtime, people talk about the 10 men on the field, which is right. It was late. The Bills in overtime had the first possession and they were like in the red zone and they didn't even score a point.
Would they miss a field goal or how'd that happen?
No, they got down and maybe it was 25. It was right around there, 25-20. They were moving the ball. Touchdown wins the game. And they ran it like an end around and lost 10 yards and then they got sacked.
Oh my gosh. Do you remember, well, you watched the game, but it was Jay Ajayi, right? Who
Yes.
just like ran all over them in that game?
Yeah, and then the big run in overtime, and that's when we realized there was 10 guys in the field, and then Rex Ryan didn't have a job shortly after that. Times have changed for sure. Bills, Dolphins, though, that's back again, folks. It's Miami week. Thanks for listening. iTunes, Spotify, Odyssey app, and of course on YouTube at Sal Sports on the YouTube channel. All right, Matt, enjoy the game. Enjoy the weather. It's Miami week, buddy.
I'm just going to say this so nobody hates me. Bills 31, Dolphins 30. Good night.
Oh, okay. Way to make up for it.